How's it going, YouTube? It's Ninja7, your resident Mistweaver Monk, and in today's video, I want to show you guys every single heroic boss that I healed on my Mistweaver. Now, I'm not going to be looking at my mythic logs. We have killed 3 out of the, 8 bosses now. If you guys want me to, I will be making a separate video on all of them, but today's video, I'm going to give you guys everything all in one video. I don't want you to have to hunt down 8 different videos. I'm not trying to click farm you guys. I just want you guys to have access to all the information all in one video. So I'm going to watch over all of my VODs. I will have them timestamped for your convenience. That way, if you are trying to learn how to get better at a certain boss or something, you can go and watch that. Now, you can also note from these parses, I guess, that some of these bosses I do very well on. Some of these bosses I don't, and I think that's what a video like this will be very valuable for. We can kind of look at the differences and what went wrong, what went right on some of these fights. I do also want to note that a lot of you have been asking about Chiji in Raid. I do play Chiji versus the Nexus King Salahdar, so you know, that'll be included in this video. So without further ado, let's just kick things off with Plexus Sentinel, my guild's heroic kill of this boss, and we're going to skip to right once we are about to pull the boss. So like I said, we're going through every single boss. I am playing Mistweaver. This is the traditional Yulon build that is in my guide video. I'll make sure and link that down in the description below. I will make a Chiji guide soon once I get around to it. But already with Plexus Sentinel, this is heroic, by the way. This is our second time killing each of these bosses. So I'm still trying to learn the timings of a lot of these fights. Like, when should I use my Yulon, Revival, all that stuff. So a lot of these fights I still don't necessarily have the timings down, but this one I do. And we have now at this point, like from filming this, we have prog this on Mythic, and I know that the #1 time that you want to have your Yulon is during the intermission. So when you like go through the wall and then the boss is waiting for you at the end, that's when you really want your Yulon, and that's at about like 2:15 into the fight ish, like around 2:15. I learned that last week, so as long as I have Yulon ready for that, then we can go. So what I do is I like to send a Yulon right here, kind of on pool, you know, for that first tank soak, and then that way I will have it up later in the fight. Now, note that I am very aggressive with my mana. This is heroic, and I'm still trying to learn how to handle all of this haste. And you're going to see that as the fights go on. I do try to practice getting my mana back on track, because as we're progressing these mythic bosses, we've killed 3 so far, and all 3 of them I have kind of been out of mana at the end of the fight, so I'm trying to watch all the haste. Now, I do have 39% haste in this first kill, so way too much haste, especially because we're getting so much haste from our tier set. But I do want to say that I'm Thunder Focus teeing Enveloping Mists. You guys can probably see all my cast up here in the top middle of the screen. You see me trying to change it to overall healing, that way you can see, because I know it was stuck on like Dispels or something. And you see here, we have pushed the ball so quickly this week compared to last week that I don't even have Yulon up for that first intermission, which is it sucks a lot, but you're going to see that. Luckily, since I ramped so early in the fight, I do end up getting a second Yulon off, which is very good. It just doesn't really have its most optimal use, which is that downtime, that intermission, because that's when the damage starts to amp up. But during this time, you're going to see I'm on top of my rushing wind kicks. I'm not maxing out on renewing mist charges, and I'm trying not to run too low on mana, but I see the boss is creeping toward death. I see I have so many cooldowns coming up, so I'm going to conduit to get that haste buff, and then I'm going to drink a bit of Mana Tea, and then probably go right into a Yulon here, if I know myself. Nope, we just went with Revival. I don't know what I'm saving my Yulon for here. But you see, look, parsing, literally, I always say it, parsing does not matter, because we're basically 2 healing this. We do have a 3rd healer, but he's going for a damage parse, so we're basically 2 healing this. That's why we're able to parse so well in heroic. That's what guilds do. I don't know why I didn't send a second Yulon there. I feel like I could have parsed even higher if I did, but anyways, like I said, since we practice on Mythic, I do want to Yulon during the intermissions, but since this is only our second kill, we're changing the timings on things so frequently, so I'm gonna have to look back over this, and I might Next week, I might still ramp on pool, but that way I'll be able to ramp at the end of this fight. But let's move on to the second boss. All right, we're on to Loomithar, and this is the second boss that we killed, and this is also the most recent boss that we killed on Mythic. And on Mythic, there was a lot of healing at the end of the fight. Not so much healing in the middle of the fight or all throughout. But you'll see I want to talk about this right now. Before a pool starts, I try to start the fight with a couple of Renewing Mist out. So at about 10 seconds left in the pool timer, I do a Rushing Wind Kick. And then I try to do another one right as we pull the boss to tag the boss with my Mystic Touch. But I always try to do like Rushing Wind Kick and then a few Renewing Mists. And then go from there. But you see here, I start the fight with a Conduit because, like I said, there's not too much healing in this first part. It really does amp up as these rings come out. So I start with Conduit. That way I can spam around as many Renewing Mists. And you see already our Renewing Mist count is pretty high. It's pretty high for this early into the fight. And then now I start my Yulon ramp. Once again, there's literally nothing to heal on this fight this early on. But I found that whenever I would ramp on pool, like the moment we pooled, a lot of it would go to waste because, like I said, this damage amps up, so I want to be ramping up my healing to peak when the little bit of damage that's coming in peaks. So now that I am outside of my ramp, I try to just maintain Renewing Mists. You're going to see me cast around some Vivifies. I'm really going to be monitoring my mana with these Manatees, but just staying on top of those Renewing Mists and Rushing Wind Kicks. And then anytime someone's health drops low enough to where a Vivify would get good value, like right there, long stocks or whatever, long strokes, the tanks, both of the tanks would be good Vivify targets because that full Vivify would get its value. Else, I am just going to Enveloping Mist to keep my hot count up. But you see here, just I'm keeping up that cycle. Renewing Mist, Rushing Wind Kick, Renewing Mist, Vivify. Like, it's kind of the bread and butter. You see here, people are low enough to where Vivify would get its full heal, so I should be Vivifying. And then I'll show you a moment coming up. Like right now, I should still be Vivifying. Using that Enveloping Mist, that Strength of Black Ox proc, but now, if I wanted to fill, I would either do damage spells like Tiger Palm Blackout Kick to maintain my mana bar, or I could sit here and spam some Enveloping Mist around to get that hot count up for when damage actually comes in. But here we have Conduit. I do have about half of my mana bar. I do have Thunder Focus Tea, and one thing that I want to talk about is when you have Thunder Focus Tea and Conduit, use your Thunder Focus Tea first, because after you get Conduit, look at how fast that Thunder Focus Tea timer comes off. So what I did was I Thunder Focus Tea'd an Enveloping Mist to get a crit buff, and then I pressed Conduit, and then you're blasting more healing with that Conduit, and then once that Conduit ends, your Thunder Focus Tea will be back in no time. So make sure you Thunder Focus Tea, use that before you Conduit. Same thing with like Rushing Wind Kick, ideally also with some Renewing Mist charges. But you see here I'm in my Yulon. I do have 3 charges of Renewing Mist. That was a little bit inefficient of me. But since I'm in Yulon, I'm just going to be casting these Enveloping Mists around. Rushing Wind Kick once it's off cooldown. So about 3 Enveloping Mist into a Rushing Wind Kick. 3 Enveloping Mist, Rushing Wind Kick. And then every now and then a Vivify. Like you saw there, our Warlock was a bit lower, so I Vivified. Here I'm lower, so I could Vivify myself, could Vivify the DK. But now you're going to see I am out of mana. I do have 20 stacks of Mana Tea. I see the boss is dying. I'm just going to chug a bit. We're really close to a revival, and we do actually lose our other co-healer. So I did get a little bit greedy here, but revival does kind of come in to save the day. We still haven't rezzed our healer, but we're starting to lose some people. The boss is at 4% health, so this is not going as well as it could have. I definitely got a little bit, I was too greedy with my mana there to where we kind of just weren't able to fully capitalize on all that healing that needed to be smudged up. But still, like I said, just keeping on top of those Renewing Mists, that Rushing Wind Kick, keep that thing on cooldown, be very efficient with your Thunder Focus Teas, and then I guess I'll focus more on the haste buff that you get from that in the next fight. Let's move to the third boss. So moving on to Soulbinder, I know that this fight is very much like the first boss, where most of the damage is in that intermission that kind of splits the fight. So my goal, coming from that first boss, seeing that ramping on pool so that I could get a second one later on, was actually less efficient than if I would have just saved my ramp for the middle. I'm going to actually try to do this on this fight, and I do think that it ends up working out worse because I think the other healers that we're healing with do the same exact thing. So with hindsight, I probably should have just ramped during the intermission, but also we progged this boss on Mythic, and I know that that intermission is terrifying because of all the dispels, so I am saving my revival for that intermission. However, if you're progging this on Mythic, I found that with all the haste, all the Rushing Wind Kicks that we were getting off, all the crit buff that we're getting from our Thunder Focus Tea, you're able to cast Revival way more often than every 3 minutes. You can get Revivals up very frequently. So you can send an early Revival in this fight and maybe have it up for all the dots in the intermission. But you see here, I do lead with Conduit once again. If I'm not going to commit Yulon, I will at least put Conduit on cooldown. There's no point in sitting on all of my spells, all of my major spells. So here, during this intermission, or during this downtime, I'm just trying to keep as many hots out as possible. Just trying not to fall behind on the healing charts. And then once we're knocked back, I did Rushing Wind Kick before. That way I could cast an Instant Vivify mid-air. And then I also had Thunder Focus Tea. You just want to have things to do while you're flying in the air. And different fights have different knockups in this season. Like the second to last boss has a knockup on the raid. So you just want to make sure you have a plan for what you can do. That way you're not just AFK while you're flying. So for me, that's Rushing Wind Kicking before we get launched. That way I have an Instant Vivify, and then Thunder Focus Tea, Enveloping Mist is another great option. Here, that's a great example of using your mobility to optimize your casting. See, if I would have run all the way out there the moment I got marked, then I'm spending a lot of time moving, much less time casting. But what you can do is you can use your mobility so that you can like cast, roll, cast. So like shorten the amount of time that you're moving. Also there, I'll do stutter steps between like Renewing Mist or between Vivifies. That way I'm maximizing how much or how I'm moving, and that really limits your movement time. But you see there, I did end up sending a ramp about 30 seconds ago. It didn't really amount to too much. We're kind of just honestly, we're just melting this boss. Now that would have been a very good revival. However, me being the guilty that I am, I really wanted to save the revival for this moment here, just to cleanse the dots, just guarantee that we don't randomly wipe to some nonsense. And in the meantime, Shamrocked, our shaman, got some crazy good Spirit Link value. There was our revival, cleansed all those dots, got me a bunch of healing. And I think we're better off for it because I think every other healer had sent their cooldowns. But you see, once again, I am very low on mana. I need to drink all 20 of these Mana Tea stacks. I'm just not playing my Mana Tea that efficiently in heroic fights because I know I have enough mana to heal through a heroic fight, you know. But here, all this time that I'm spending drinking is starting to bite me in the butt, so maybe I need to actually like start paying attention to that and playing smarter with my mana and stop just being reckless because I know I can, you know what I mean? Like, we have plenty of Mana Tea stacks. You see here, all the other healers are starting to pass me. It's that Mana Tea, man. I need to start playing it better. And in these mythic progging fights, I am starting to actually sit mana as we pull a fight. So basically what I'm doing is I'm really spamming all these hots, spamming all these casts. But you really want to be taking these like little few second swigs of mana, especially before you press your Thunder Focus Tea, before you press your Conduit. Those don't like cost that much mana, but that haste buff that you get really makes you spew out mana a ton. So there, we killed that boss, no problem. Shamrock absolutely popped off. That Spirit Link totem is huge on this fight. But let's move on to the fourth fight. Okay, Forgeweaver Araz. Now, this is the first fight that I'll admit I don't really know too well yet. Like, I really don't. I need to maybe, like, get a few reps and, like, maybe on a weekend day, just, like, go join random heroic kills of it, even if I've already killed it with my group and stuff. I don't really know the best time to ramp. However, what I learned on week 1 was that if I waited about 15 seconds and ramped then my second ramp would be at a very good time. So knowing that, coming into this week, I was like, but how do I adjust that for how much damage my raid is doing? And I think it ended up punishing me because I do think I just sit on my ramp a little too long. But what I do know is that we can spam around some hots and kind of always be ready to do some amount of healing. So that's kind of what we do. And we are very good at that, especially with our Conduit spam heal. But you see there, I am Thunder Focus Teeing and then using it on an Enveloping Mist. The reason why you do an Enveloping Mist outside of your ramp is because, like I said, the tier set is giving you haste. So you want to be able to have big haste and big crit as opposed to like just doubling up on the big haste. Because it's just too much haste that you'll get kind of like, the game will kind of have some weird latency issues and stuff. So there I did do a very good ramp into this soak, which did big healing. However, you'll see our druid also ramped. So we were really like kind of eating each other's ramp moments. So that is a huge downside to these heroic bosses, how quickly my guild is killing them. Because you know, you don't really need to assign cooldowns, so you're kind of all just kind of going for the same few healing instances, and this just happens. And unfortunately, I think the druid knew the timers a bit better on this fight than I did. Our druid's an insane player, by the way, so big props to him. He's absolutely cranking on these mythic fights. But here's another soak. I do have Shayloons. I do have Conduit. And I don't use either of them. There's a Conduit. It's a bit late, though. I probably should have Conduited as that damage hit. And I would have gotten so much more healing. But this is honestly just me being so unfamiliar with the mechanics. I'm like, I don't know where to go. So yeah, this is kind of what it looks like when I'm like a chicken with my head cut off. You see me, I'm like, wait, what? But at least I know how to play Mistweaver, and just know to keep these renewing mists on cooldown. I sat at 3 charges for a little bit, but it's because I was sipping my mana tea and also kind of like not really paying attention to my UI. Yeah, this is just a prime example of, you know, what on earth is going on. But you see just how important your ramp timings can be in Raid. I mean, you saw, I bet I started my ramp about 2 seconds too late on that first one, and our druid sniped so much of the healing just because I was a little late. Whereas if I would have started about 2 seconds earlier, I probably would have been above him on the, you know, meters at that point in time. He still probably would have rocked me on this fight, because this does seem like a very good druid fight. You see there, I probably should have revivaled that. I feel like there's no other instance in this fight that does a big smack of damage. So I don't know why I did not revival the knockback, but I am in Yulon. I did just Shayloons, so I do have that haste buff. Once that haste buff falls off, I then followed up with a Thunder Focus Tea. So it's really good to like either use Thunder Focus Tea or Shayloon's Gift at the start of your ramp. That way you get your tier set haste buff. And then once that buff falls off, follow it up with the other one, because you'll always have one or the other available. You can even use Conduit if for some reason you have no Thunder Focus Tea, no Shayloons ready in the middle of your ramp. You know, do like a Conduit. You can even end it early to get that buff if you really need to. See here, I saw my rogue at the bottom. You can't really see the rogue's health bars, actually. I'm kind of blocking him. Maybe I can go back about 10 seconds and hide my face for a second, if I can figure out how. So you'll see our rogues are dropping super low. So what I do is I roll over to the middle of the raid so that I can reach everyone and hit revival to try to save them. So there was our revival use. We only get one in this fight. We did get a second Yulon, and it's looking like we're gonna get a third one. So I'm just gonna chug this mana, especially during this downtime. But the thing is, I don't know what damage is coming up, so I'm like, maybe I need to get my hot count up, getting ready for incoming damage. But our raid leader is saying this is like a damage amp, so everyone just do damage. So I'm like, okay, screw it. We're just Tiger Palm and Blackout Kicking. Let's do some damage. But I do have Conduit. Conduit would be a great thing to press during this damage amp, especially right now because, you know, we did end up taking a bunch of damage. But Conduit would give us a lot more rushing wind kicks. That's a lot more damage, but also a lot of hot count as well. But yeah, man, just unfamiliarity with this fight. I'm going to go back and rewatch this one myself and see how I can improve. Because I'm sure I can move some timings. I can just play better around certain mechanics, maybe increase the urgency of my bigwigs announcements for this fight. But yeah, this is a fight that I'm admittedly very unprepared for. Now moving on to the council fight, this is one of my favorite fights because even on like normal and heroic, this fight is actually kind of a challenge. It does there's a lot of healing required. There's at least some heal absorb, so no matter how much you outscale it, you're still going to get a big heal absorb. And the reason why that's fun is because it's just fun to heal. There's like constantly stuff to heal. I definitely think that I should have ramped on pool there, but you see, even without ramp, even with just sending Conduit on pool, I still did like 5 million HPS. That just shows how explosive you are with your tier set haste buff, and how if you're just staying on top of those renewing mists and rushing wind kicks during that Conduit amp, when you have Heart of the Jade Serpent, you can really spam out a ton of pots, capitalize with each rushing wind kick with a Vivify, and get a lot of healing out. And still, now it's probably better that I didn't Yulon there, but I probably should have Yulon before this moment, because now I'm very late to my Yulon. I pressed Yulon as that damage hit, but you want to press it about 6 to 7 seconds before the damage hits to spread around all those hots. So Once again, this is just me not having a good big wig setup lined up, and I definitely want to get some like weak aura packages maybe to kind of announce to me like 6 seconds in advance of a mechanic or something would be very helpful here. But yeah, like I said, there's just a lot of damage going out, constant damage. But the thing is, you'll probably notice we're killing the bosses very unevenly. And there I did Revival, which is kind of not that good on this fight because you don't really want to be spreading around that dot. If you dispel someone, the dot jumps to another player. So you want to let the people who have the dot just sit in those puddles and soak them up. You don't want to be sending it to a random player at a different time. So maybe run Restore on this fight, and I feel like it'd be a lot better. But you'll notice that these bosses are not dying evenly, and I'm pretty sure you do want them to. That's kind of how all council fights really work. So we're going to end up having to like slow DPS on some of them. It's going to really slow down the fight eventually. And so this fight will be going on a long time. And you see already, I'm at like a third of mana. Once again, I keep talking about my mana issues. It's not that we have a mana issue at all. It's just that I'm ignoring my mana T, thinking like, oh, we're going to blast this boss. Let's just be too confident. And it's biting me in the butt. But you see there, I did try to save Epochs, but I think he was in the middle. Yeah, you see his body in the middle there, so he was kind of unsavable, if I'm being honest. But I think he had disconnected. I'm pretty sure he disconnected, because he's a very good player. He normally doesn't, die to obvious, I'm getting sucked in to kill you kind of things. But yeah, he definitely got DC'd. So I'm not going to take that death too crazy. But here, this downtime right coming out of that intermission is plenty of time to drink up my mana tea. Also, I normally have a macro for my mana potions, and I didn't have that working tonight. I wonder if that would help a little bit, but I shouldn't be needing these mana potions. I should just play better. Don't use this as a handicap. You see there, I did ramp before the healing absorbs came out, and you see my healing actually does go up a bit. But during these Yulon ramps, I am trying to get a few Enveloping Mist out, then Rushing Wind Kick, Enveloping Mist, Rushing Wind Kick, like 3 Enveloping Mist, then a Rushing Wind Kick. And then after I do that cycle a couple of times, if there's a lot of health missing, like a sizable amount of health missing from a single health bar, then I would Vivify. Else, you can just keep in that little 3-1 cycle. And then once again, you do want to try to like split your Yulon into 2 12-second windows. And in between those 12-second windows, so you start off with like a Thunderfolk's Tear or Shayloons, and then at 12 seconds, around 12, 13 seconds into your ramp, you do another Shayloons or Thunderfolk's Tea, whatever you didn't use first. And that way you can keep that haste buff for your whole Yulon ramp and have it be super explosive. But you're just going to see me keep falling down because of my mana. This fight is just dying slower and slower as we go into it. Yeah, poor mana management. This is what I'm going to really work on these following weeks. See? Even I make huge mistakes. Even I misjudge things. I shouldn't say even I should say especially I make mistakes. Especially I misjudge things. And you see here on the healing charts, I think this was my lowest parse. And it is strictly because we are toward the end of the fight, the most hectic part. And I have nothing to do. I don't have Yulon, don't have Revival, don't have Conduit, don't have mana. So this is just, when we fight this boss in the future, I will be much more conservative with my mana in the first half of this fight and really take little tiny sips of mana tea, especially before Thunder Focus Teas, before Shayloons, before any time that I'm going to get my tier set haste buff, I'm going to take a quick swig of mana tea just to really make sure I'm not using that accelerated haste period to really accelerate my mana usage. See here, we're coming up to the end of the fight. I am lowest on the meters, but I'm about to ramp. I do have Yulon, so that's kind of how it works. You kind of start to taper off until you ramp again. You kind of do peak back up. So hopefully we can peak back up, but you see I'm still drinking mana tea. But there's a sizable amount of healing that needs to be done. But the fight kind of ends before I get to kind of soak up all that healing. So we do end up very low, unfortunately. I think maybe if I ramp exactly on pool next time, the first ramp will be a little early, but then it'll set up our last few ramps to be, full length ramps. But then also just our mana was just a big problem in this fight. But let's move on to the next fight. All right, Fractilus, probably the easiest fight of this raid because of the weak auras that kind of just like literally do the fight for you. But you'll see, once again, before the fight starts, I Rushing Wind Kick, and then I do a few Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist to shave time off that Rushing Wind Kick. That way it's up right once we pull. And then I conduit. I definitely should have Thunder Focus Tea before that conduit. That's a 100% thing that I should have done. But the reason why I start this fight with conduit is because this fight literally does no damage. So I am just trying to get as many hots out as possible for that first instance of damage. And then boom, there's one Vivify to heal all of it up. I mean, that's literally how much damage this fight does. But you really want to stay on top of your hot coverage because the more tiny heals that you're doing, the more you're going to sponge up all those tiny damage instances. So that's kind of like my philosophy here. Then once again, people go out. This is when there's going to be another big spike of damage. I do try to get a few Enveloping Mist on the people that did get moved out. You see on my UI, they are marked with a dot. So it tells me that I should hot them. Or not a dot, but like a debuff icon. Gonna cocoon the guy that does drop low. That was, I believe, Bob. No, it was Santa. Okay. But cocoon the one person that drops low, which is good. You do want to be cocooning early and often because all of our Heart of the Jade Serpent instances do shave time off that cooldown. So if you're sitting on cocoon for more than like 45 seconds at a time, that is just inefficient because, like I said, it's listed on as one of the spells that gets its time shaven. But you'll see, once again, like us and the Resto Druid are kind of just like hammering this fight because there's so little damage coming out that our little hots are just like really good for that. But you see there, I try to get some Enveloping Mist on the few of us that get marked, but man, literally what is there to heal in this fight? Is this fight as easy as it is for y'all's guilds as it is for mine? Because, I don't know, man. You see here about, 8 people or so are taking damage. That's a great time for Conduit. The downside, though, is that all 8 of those people are kind of spread out. So maybe if I would have revivaled there, that would have been a lot more healing. But you see, our Resto Druid did exactly that. He actually was hotting up or regrowthing those few players. And that's why my healing coverage there wasn't as good as his. Because whenever there's a fight like this where a few people are taking the big damage, I should not be, renewing misting around. I should just be enveloping misting those few people and only spot healing those few people. That should be my goal. Like right now, I don't know why I just renewing misted Riffic. I should have been doing what I'm doing now, where I enveloping mist me, Nico, Shamrocked, Medea down in the bottom left that you guys can't see. But yeah, this is a big mistake that I'm making on this fight. But now that I kind of have a better understanding of this fight and how it works and how the damage comes in, I know how I can do better about healing it. And although I'm doing a lot of like cleave healing with my Vivifies on this and like all this renewing mist healing, it is good. But now I'm starting to catch on. You see me, I did go around, I envelop misted or renewing misted everyone that had that dot. As soon as they get knocked back, I rushing wind kick and then just Vivify a few of them. And that does do a lot better healing. And here I'm just vivifying those same few people, the only people in the raid right now that are taking damage. So I'm learning, I'm catching on in real time, and I think as we move forward, making this video, like me just talking through this video, will make me even better at these fights as well. You see there, I was one of the people that took the dot, so I popped Conduit because it does solid AoE healing, but it really does do a big chunk heal on yourself as soon as you pop it. Man, that trinket looks really cool, that Prism trinket. But let's move on to the exciting fight. So here's Salahdar. I am still running Yulon here. Oh, what's this? A frontal? We are all mind controlled. Okay, let's get to the real kill. Okay, this is Salahdar, and this is with the Chiji build. So I'm sure a lot of you guys skipped to this part just to see the Chiji build in action. You see, this is from our last pool. I think we might have had like a tank death or something. But yeah, Harmonic Surge, it really cranks. So I am running Master of Harmony Mistweaver with Chiji in Heroic Raid on the second to last boss. This boss does a lot of damage, requires a lot of healing. But I do want to say if you're running Master of Harmony, you need to swap off of Harmonic Gambit and swap to Purified Spirit, or else you're going to do some of your Vitality as a dot, and you don't want that in healing. You just want to do as much throughput, like healing as possible. And that's the only talent that lets you do damage with your Vitality, so make sure to swap off that. So on pool on this fight, I like to ramp. And the reason why is because phase 1 is about 2 minutes long. So it can let you it's a little over 2 minutes long. So you can get 2 Chijis or 2 Yulons in if you ramp basically on pool. So you're going to see I actually pop Chiji a few seconds before we pool. And that way, the moment the timer hits 0, I Jadefire Stomp, Thunder Focus Tea, and then I am just in my Chiji. So Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Enveloping Mist. Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Enveloping Mist. And you'll see there, I did my second Thunder Focus Tea as soon as I was about to point at the monitor. As soon as this Vitality meter, this little green bar underneath, started glowing, I used my second Thunder Focus Tea on one of the Enveloping Mists that I cast. And you see our HPS absolutely skyrockets. Now, on the last pull, it was a lot higher, but that's okay. We will take a Chiji ramp with 6 million HPS. You know, I will take that all day. And you see as these dots come out, these little slashes, the little claw marks, these are a great mechanic for me to use these Crackling Jade Lightnings on, because they hit about like 5 players at once. That's perfect for Ancient Teaching Ceiling. So I should, in hindsight, I definitely should have used my Crackling Jade Lightnings then. So once those people got these things that are literally leaving a stain on the ground here, that's when I should have used my Crackling Jade Lightnings. But once again, I said this earlier in the video, but whenever I'm knocked up in the air, I want to have a plan for something to do. I don't just want to AFK while I'm flying through the air. So here I do Rising Sun Kick before we get knocked up, and then I Vivify and then Blackout Kick as we're kind of up in the air and falling. But here the rotation, you'll notice that I'm Jade Fire Stomping often enough to maintain not just Ancient Teachings or Jade Fire Teachings, but also to maintain my Jade Fire Stomp, because our Thunder Focus Teas also give us Jade Fire Teachings. That sometimes will be a great thing. You can Jade Fire Stomp, and then the next time you're about to lose that buff, Thunder Focus Tea again to maintain that buff. But yeah, here I'm trying to match every damage instance with a Blackout Kick. So I'm Tiger Palm, and then the moment that damage comes out, I will Blackout Kick. And it's really good too, because then you'll follow that Blackout Kick out with 2 Tiger Palms, and those Tiger Palms will use those Harmonic Surge potential energies to do more healing. You see here, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. You can get one more Chiji off before this fight, and we are trying to do a push strat. So this is kind of the reason why I went Chiji, is because we needed more damage, and I was like, hey, I can do a little bit more damage if you want me to. And they were like, okay, go for it. So I whipped out Chiji, and we're trying to push the boss and kill him before he does his big go it to each side thing. Here I get pincered between 2 beams, which is not ideal, but it is a-okay. You see here our Evoker is just blowing up on the meters. Dude, Pres Evoker is something else. Now look, a lot of people ask me like, oh, is Chiji viable in Raid right now? And I always say it depends on your definition of viable. I do think that Chiji would probably, if you take like a perfect Yulon raid gameplay and then take a perfect Chiji raid gameplay in 2 different raid guilds, I do think the Chiji player would cap at like a 90-91 parse. And then obviously the Yulon player would take like they could cap at 100 parse. But, you know, if you're someone who's just a diehard Chiji gamer, I wouldn't blame you if you just sat on Chiji all season, because it's a lot of fun. It does healing, does damage. Nothing wrong with either of those things, you know, so it just depends on the player. But you see here, we do have to run out, which does suck, kind of a bummer. Here, I really wish that I could be zapping. I could be using that Crackling Jade Lightning there, but just couldn't risk it with that suckback. Here, we do have to roll to the middle. But yeah, like I said, we're trying to use Thunder Focus Teas on Enveloping Mists for the crit buff. I don't know if I should be always using it on a Renewing Mist with this build, but I've liked using it on a crit buff here, especially because, like I said, my haste is so high. And you see there, we have so much health missing on the raid, and I'm going into my Chiji. I popped Chiji, popped a Thunder Focus Tea on the second, so I Tiger Palm, Chiji'd, Blackout Kicked, used the free Enveloping Mist, or Instant Enveloping Mist, and then Thunder Focus Tea'd another Instant Enveloping Mist to splash all that Enveloping Breath at once, get that crit buff, and then just kept my Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Enveloping Mist going for the entire Chiji. Now here we have a few people missing health, and I am not able to get in melee and punch and kick, which is a big bummer. That is a big downside of this build, is you do lose a lot of throughput when you're forced out of range or out of melee. There, our raid leader was like, okay, now go back middle. So everyone went middle, and a few people did die. I don't know how I lived there, to be honest, but all in all, I will say this was a super fun kill. We got to use Crackling Jade Lightning in single target, which is always fun. We got to use Chiji and Master of Harmony in raid, and it actually did pretty good healing, like actually very good healing. I competed with the Resto Druid, who, like I said earlier, is a fantastic player. So all in all, I might be trying out some Chiji builds again, especially on these heroic bosses. I mean, Chiji's really not that bad in heroic and normal. It does really start to fall off once you need those more explosive high number ramps like Yulon can provide. But all in all, keep that same rotation. Keep Jadefire Teachings active at all times. Try to pair up your Chiji with the big raid healing cooldowns. And then try to pair up your Crackling Jade Lightnings while you're buffed by like a Thunder Focus Tea or something by Secret Infusion. Try to use those then. That way they do the most damage that they can. Also, if you're gonna Crackling Jade Lightning and you know you're about to crackle through a mechanic, try to get like a few Tiger Palms and Blackout Kicks cast right in a row. That way you can build up that balanced stratagem. I was doing that as well. All in all, super fun. Let's move on to the final boss, the longest one. Let's get this out of the way. All right, we're on to Dimensious. Dimensious? How do you guys say it? I love this fight. I think it is one of the best final fights I've ever seen. I have only been playing since Sire Denathrius, but this one is definitely going to be the most memorable one, up there with like the Jailer for me. So this fight, we are 4 healing, which a lot of guilds 6 heal. So since we are 4 healing, I'm going to actually save my Yulon here for when we're off to our side. So instead, what I'm doing is I am committing Conduit here, so that way I can spam around a bunch of hots, really amp up my hot count for this first part. I don't know where Ami is. Maybe he fell off. Oh, he was AFK in the back. So unfortunately, he's dead. But you see there, our Evoker did ramp there, I'm pretty sure. So he did skyrocket in the healing. I did commit Revival because it's a raid-wide heal there. However, like I said, I saved Yulon for while we're on this side. So here, I'm about to send Yulon. Now, this is a little unfortunate. There me and Mesh did kind of group hug each other. Uh-oh. Sorry, Mesh. I am so sorry about that. We just absolutely stepped on each other. But this is really good for us because it does let us do a lot more healing with this Yulon. However, it does kind of suck because I think we're only going to get 1 Yulon off on P1, which if you ramp, there I did get knocked up during the ramp too, which really sucks. But if you ramp right on pull on this fight, you can get another one off on this phase, which is always really good, or really nice, I should say. But still, like I said, since we saved our ramp and Nico didn't for this phase, we were able to kind of catch up with him on the meters. And as you saw earlier, he did ramp when we were all stacked. Ooh, Santa dropped so low there. Unfortunately, though, my Cocoon is on cooldown. But this fight is very, very good for us because we do so much Vivify healing. You should also be able to blanket your entire half of the raid with a Renewing Mist most of the time. And also, Conduit looks really good when you're split in 2 groups of half of your raid. So, just trying to keep everyone alive, man. We are dropping like flies. We are losing some people. But I think a lot of the deaths are mistakes, if I'm not mistaken. But there, our revival also had just come up right after we lost someone. I almost got knocked off, but I knew I was getting knocked, so I had my roll double jump ready to fly back onto the map. I did revival just now because I had Shayloons rolling. So I had Shao, I was less than rolling, my bad. But man, getting a lot of value out of this Life Cocoon, trying to spam it. Because like I said earlier, all of these Heart of the Jade Serpent buffs that we're getting, they do shave time off your Life Cocoon. Here, when he picks you up, you can still cast Hots, you can still Rushing Wind Kick, you can drink your Mana Tea, but as you're falling down just now, you can't. So that's a big downside. I guess I'll skip the flight. But you see, our Yulon is active, our Yulon is ready. So as soon as we land, I do use Shayloons, and then I just try to use that Heart of the Jade Serpent to cast around a few Hots. And then now, as we're about to transition, as we break that ad, this is when I like to Yulon. That way we have all these Hots for the big pushback. So now I'm in my Yulon, spamming around these Hots, really covering the raid. You see, I did catch up with Nico there. And I think a lot of that had to do with a lot of the Hots that we had as we were flying, but also that I do like this timing of a ramp. A lot. And there I do use Conduit to follow up that ramp so that we can continue our explosiveness with more explosiveness. Unfortunately, our guild is killing the ads super quickly, so I don't really get to capitalize on that Conduit. But before we take flight, I do try to spam Renewing Mist and Rushing Wind Kicks during that heightened Heart of the Jade Serpent moment, just to get a lot of Hots out and really sponge up the last bit of healing needed to be done. Let's skip ahead 20 seconds here, so let's go 30, back 10. Back 10 more, I guess. So we land, Once again, probably going to Shayloons to start. Yep, there's a Shayloons, and then I'm just spamming my Rushing Wind Kick and Renewing Mist, trying to get these hots out. No, I'm not. I'm drinking Mana Tea. What am I doing? I guess to be fair, this phase 2 moment, it's really just a mechanics check. It's not really like a throughput check. So I guess maybe it's for the right, or I'm in the right to sit here and drink Mana Tea during these downtimes. Good Spirit Link Totem, but we're about to get knocked back, aren't we? I guess not. But I do have Yulon. I will be saving that for the start of P3. I think that's a great time to Yulon. However, I think right here I'm about to... Yeah, I do like to Revival as we're getting pushback. We do lose Nico, and y'all know Nico is crazy good player, also on a crazy broken spec right now. So we're going to have to really carry some of the brunt of in his absence. We do have a lot of dead players. Keep in mind this is our guild's second time killing this. But I did Conduit right before we took flight, and that sucks. Because it would have been really nice to have Conduit here at the start of this phase, because, you know, you get a few seconds to do damage before you need to Yulon. So here I'm just Tiger Palming, Blackout Kicking, Rushing Wind Kicking for a few seconds, and then now I'm about to start my Yulon ramp in a few seconds, because he's about to start amping up some damage. We do get Nico up. You see there I did start my Yulon. And notice here, these guys are highlighted purple, these few health bars. Those are the people that get the shield from Yulon, and since I'm running Jade Bond, I don't want to be casting my Enveloping Mist on them, because once that shield breaks, they get a free Enveloping Mist. So try to make sure and show that the shield from Yulon is showing on your raid meters, because that really does help. It's very good information, can help you know who to cast Enveloping Mist on and who not to. Luckily, our ramp does end right before we have to do all this movement, and like I said, I try to always have spells planned in my head for when I'm on the move. So that's Rushing Wind Kick, Renewing Mists, Instant Vivifies, things like that. Like I always try to not just be moving. Like I want to be moving and doing something. And then when I do have to move, I want to be as efficient as possible with rolls. Like you really want to be using those roll charges if you have them. Being extra cautious about getting sucked in, because I think last week I did get sucked into the boss and died, unfortunately. But here I'm just being extra cautious with my mana here. And then as soon as that damage hits, I pop Conduit. Because I was just basically AFK drinking Mana Tea. Don't want to miss out on that bit of healing. And I can, since I'm spending so much time drinking Mana Tea for a few seconds, I can catch up on my hot count with a Conduit. Ooh, almost just jumped into the death there. But we did Revival. It did sponge up a little bit of healing, but we're really not going to see too many good chances to get a good Revival in this phase on Heroic. Dude, this fight on Mythic looks insane. I'm so excited to get there. But I'm not excited to have all this movement. I might actually fight it as Chiji. I'm thinking on Mythic. That way I can move around a ton and just like punch and kick, you know? But we're coming up on my final Yulon ramp. The boss is kind of closing in on death. He has 10% health. It's looking very good. We're going to get a full-length ramp here. Unfortunately, I think Nico just ramped. So here we go. Come on, press Yulon. What are we doing? Why am I waiting? What on earth am I waiting on? I think I thought that I had pressed Yulon, but I didn't. But yeah, I definitely could have had like a half of a Yulon ramp there. But you see there, guys, that is my Heroic clear of this week. Once again, a lot of these fights I am still learning. I still have a lot to learn about the timers on some of these fights, the mechanics even on some of them. The middle few I kind of just like don't really think about that much. But hopefully this video helped you guys see some of the patterns that I'm doing, a lot of the mistakes I'm doing, mostly about my mana consumption. I need to get a lot better about that. Don't look at my Warlock's name right now. But guys, I hope this video helped someone. I hope that you guys either enjoyed it or learned something from it. Maybe, like I said, I make a lot of mistakes. Very human of a person. So hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes. But guys, if you like this video, make sure and hit the like button. If you like this format of me kind of getting it all out of the way in one video, that way you have it all in one place for you to find a lot easier, definitely let me know in the comments and we'll make this happen from season to season. Or if you want me to do a single video breakdown on each boss, I can do that in the future. But I like to do that for mythic fights. So if y'all want to see me break down some of the mythic kills that we've done so far, I will absolutely do that for you. So once again, let me know all of that in the comments. And then if you have other ideas about similar things, let me know what you guys want to see down in the comments below. Like the video, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any healer content or specifically Mistweaver content in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video and for all the support. You guys are amazing. I'm still working on our All Healers to 3K series on stream, so if that sounds interesting to you, go watch episode 1 and see if you want to hang out in one of the streams on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care, guys.